You're listening to the Renegade Blitz, the best podcast for Steelers fans by Steelers fans. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at RBlitzPod, and at Blitz Videos. Read articles on RenegadeBlitz.com, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app.
Welcome back to the Renegade Blitz Podcast. As Chris Ward, joined by Brandon Walker. We don't have as you noticed, I'm doing the intro today. We don't have Ty Polk today as he's dealing with a family matter. So we wish him all the best, and our best wishes go to him. So Brandon, today the Tomlin press conference happened, and it was quite an ending there where Tomlin was asked about the USC rumor. Also the LSU coaching job has been mentioned around, national media. And so forth. Ryan Clark has mentioned it. And then Carson Palmer yesterday, he threw his 2 cents in there about the USC job. He said Tomlin was a wild card for the position. And Tomlin's not too happy about it. He definitely let everyone know. He put it to bed. He put that rumor down about him ever going down to the college level. He said, never say never, but never.
So say never, but never. It depends on what that checkbook says.
Well, he said it doesn't matter. The boosters could give him a blank check. That doesn't matter for him. And really, he's made a ton of money in the NFL. I think it doesn't matter what type of offer LSU or USC would give him if they're even interested in him.
I would agree with that, but 15 years is a long time in the NFL. In one place. I know the Steelers do it a lot. They do it better than anybody. But do you think it's time for Tomlin or the Steelers to move on?
No, not now. I don't think it's. We'll see how the season plays. His contract goes through 2024, so I think his contract's pretty much ironclad with the Steelers. The Steelers they just don't operate that way. They're not going to get rid of Tomlin. They're going to let him get his next quarterback, after this year once Roethlisberger expected to retire.
Well, you're right. So I say this to say, so you think it's why he has like one more thing left to prove that he can win with his quarterback, his new quarterback. To me, I ain't saying Tomlin wasn't a Ben guy. Or Ben wasn't a Tomlin guy.
Shots before kickoff.
It's just that they're always going to say something about you had a top 10 quarterback of all time the entire time that you was a coach. Do you think it's like a Bill Belichick, Tom Brady type situation where you want to prove that you can win with your guy and your system and your way of coaching?
I think they're going to let him try to get his next quarterback. See how those next couple of years go. But I don't see Tomlin moving on from the Steelers anytime soon. I don't get the college talk. Really, it kind of came out of nowhere. I know it started with Doug Whaley, the former GM of the Bills, on 93.7 The Fan. But I don't know. The talk just came out of nowhere, and Ryan Clark kind of built it up too, and then Carson Palmer got involved. But did you see
Ryan Clark is LSU guy?
Yeah.
We can think about it. They're tight. He's probably tighter than most people in the league. Not only because he's a former player, Mike Tomlin and Ryan Clark are fraternity brothers. If you didn't know that, so they're tight. So with the LSU thing, there might be a little bit of smoke there. I think with Ryan Clark will not say anything about Mike Tomlin and something like that unless they had a conversation. You know what I mean? He won't do that.
Yeah, he was just throwing it out there. He doesn't. Ryan Clark, he doesn't even know if Tomlin is interested. He's just basically looking at it from an LSU perspective, saying they will take him and they'll give him a lot of money to have him coach down there. But this has happened before to Tomlin. As in October 2019, there was rumors that Dan Snyder was targeting Tomlin to be the next head coach of the Washington football team. There's even talks about the Steelers trading Tomlin to Washington. It was at Washington. It was a bizarre story, but
I know about that. I know all about that story. Don't worry, I know all about that.
I get it that everybody, people like Tomlin. He'll be a great coach at the college level, and a ton of NFL teams would want his services as the head coach, but I just don't see him leaving Pittsburgh anytime soon. And really, I don't blame him for leaving the press conference without really saying anything. Well, he did say that, but he kind of left off on a bad term, kind of. He was obviously upset about being asked about it. And really, honestly, the whole notion is honestly disrespectful, I think. And I kind of see where Tom's coming from. And he mentioned too that why isn't Sean Payton and Andy Reid being discussed for a college job?
I don't know. That is a good question.
Yeah.
However, by the way, stop pimping the Washington football team on this podcast, please. Good gracious, man. Every time you want to do that, you just want to mention them. Like,
that's a valid reason, man. That happened a couple of years ago.
It did. But let's go to what the overall under is, what the betting odds is, and everything of that nature, because you are the master of that.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now, and it says here from OddsShark that the Browns are 3.5 point favorites against the Steelers on Sunday, and the over-under is 42.5 points.
Let's just say I'm going to take the under in that. I'm not giving a prediction right now. We'll wait to the end of the episode, and after we have our guy, Zach Jackson, who covers the Browns for The Athletic. Stay tuned to look out for that. And also, is Tuitt ready to go this week?
No, they're pretty still. Tomlin, he didn't really reveal too much, but I don't know. I don't know when he's going to come back, but it seems like it's not going to be for a while. Like I don't know. I know Mark Cabali, The Athletic, like one of his bold predictions back in the beginning of the year was that like Tuitt wasn't going to come back till December, because I know he's dealing with a knee injury right now. So
that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough for them, and he won't. If he's back, he won't be like the same all year long. So
you got him.
He won't be 100%. He won't be to it.
Yeah, that's asking a lot. Missing. Almost like who knows when he will be back. But if he comes back in December, like that's almost the entire season. Like at that point, you might wonder like maybe just come back next year, really.
Right.
But but I don't know. 3.5 points seems right. Don't you think? Browns are the home team. I know Keenum might be the starter, but I think you have to give them the slight edge here, being that they're playing Cleveland, which the Steelers haven't won in Cleveland since 2017, actually, because they tied in 2018, and in the last 2 years they lost in Cleveland.
Oh, so the last time they played, they beat a winless Browns team. That was the last time they beat the Browns in Cleveland.
Yep.
Interesting.
But we're gonna have Zach Jackson of The Athletic, as Brandon mentioned. He covers the Browns there, and we're gonna talk about this. Really a big game, because the Steelers are 3-3 right now. The Browns are 4-3. And they got the Ravens at 5-2, and then the surprising Bengals are in first place right now.
Number one in the AFC. If the playoffs started today, guess who would have home field advantage?
Cincinnati Bengals, man. Jamar Chase.
Good day.
Is definitely the real deal there. But we're gonna get to this interview with Zach Jackson, because a lot of good Steelers and Browns talk here that's going on with Zach Jackson. So here we go. We're gonna go to the podcast. Here we go. We're gonna go to the interview. But here with Steelers Browns week, and we have a special interview here today with Zach Jackson, who covers the Browns for The Athletic. Zach, thank you for coming on the show.
No problem. I like Brown Steelers, and I like it more when it's competitive, because for like 20 years it's been competitive about 4 times. But I think this Sunday is going to be, a really good one.
Yeah, and the AFC North is quite competitive this season, with the surprising first place Bengals at 5-2, who just blew out the Ravens on Sunday. The Ravens are now second in the division at 5-2, and the Browns are at 4-3, and the Steelers follow. They're currently last right now at 3-3. But what is the feeling in Cleveland right now about this Browns team, especially with the high expectations coming into the season, with the Browns making it to the divisional round playoff game last year?
I think the feelings are mixed. Internally, I think the team is guarded with its optimism. Obviously, when your quarterback's hurt and Nick Chubb, who's one of the best players in the whole league, regardless of position, is hurt, even though it looks like he's going to be back. Denzel Ward is hurt. So kind of an uneven start for the Browns, but 4-3 is probably right. They feel like they have a good roster. They feel like the defense was always going to get better, and it's delivered some bad performances, but it's also delivered some good performances. And when they can run the ball on you, they can beat you. So regardless of who's the quarterback or how all that shakes out, they still feel pretty good. So, I look at them like they're a playoff team. I think they're a step behind the elite teams in the AFC. I think they still have a ways to go in several areas, which, 7-8 weeks into the season, a lot of teams do, but this is a good team. It's an organization that's completely different than it was a few years ago. And, long-term, I still feel mostly good, about where the Browns are headed and what they have in building a foundation, which they just haven't done in so long.
All right, Baker Mayfield is banged up right now with injuries to both of his shoulders. That fall that he had on his shoulder against the Cardinals didn't look good at all. But as we speak, it looks like Case Keenum will get the nod on Sunday. What are your thoughts about Keenum's performance over the Broncos as they won on last Thursday, and how do you think he matches up against the Steelers defense?
Well, it's not both shoulders; it's his left shoulder. It's multiple injuries, but it's in his left shoulder. And, he said it wasn't affecting him, but it was affecting him. He was wearing a harness. His balance wasn't right. He's dealing with a lot of pain. So, as we record this, they haven't started the official practice week. I don't know. Unless Baker's going to have surgery, which there's no indication that he is right now, then if the swelling and the pain management are okay, he's got a chance to play. As we sit and talk, do I think it's going to be Case Keenum? Yes, I do. Case Keenum has been in the league a long time. He's seen a lot. He's won games. He's played in an NFC championship game. He's very limited in the throws that he makes, but he's basically got a master's degree in the Stefanski offense. He won't be rattled by getting sacked or making a mistake. And the offensive game plan will be designed so he doesn't get a chance to make many mistakes. They will run it straight ahead. They will throw quick stuff off misdirection, play action, a little bit of bootleg, but reverses and quick screens, stuff like that to get him in a flow. So, I think this is a first 17 or 20 wins. I think the defensive front that plays the best gives its team the best chance to win, regardless of who's the quarterback. But when you look at, like, Baker Mayfield is tremendously more talented than Case Keenum, but an injured Baker versus what Case gives you right now, the difference is negligible. And I think it comes down to, assuming the Browns get Chubb back, which they expect to, I don't think that has it could end up out impacting the game, obviously, but I don't think there's a great difference in how we look at it 5 days out, if that makes sense.
And with Mayfield banged up and Keenum likely getting the start, it's expected that Browns will lean on their impressive run game and offensive line. With Kareem Hunt on injury reserve currently, Nick Chubb, he's expected to play this week, but he was out with the ankle, I think, the last 2 weeks. And then D'Ernest Johnson will be the running back duo along with Chubb. And Johnson had a really impressive game against the Broncos in last Thursday night's win, rushing for 146 yards on 22 carries and a touchdown. What kind of different dimension does Johnson give to the offense?
He's a straight ahead runner, but he's a smaller guy. I've never seen him look as fast as he did last Thursday. And I think they called really good plays for him. And I think he had fresh legs, they went into this season, guys, with a plan to limit Chubb and Hunt and to keep them fresh. And, they still believe that Hunt will be back in December and bashing people the way that he was. But, Nick Chubb rested 2 games with a calf injury, power back, but super fast for a guy that's around 230 pounds. So Johnson's much smaller, a little bit shiftier, but he's proven he can play in the NFL. And, assuming it's Keenum and those guys, they're going to use both of them, right? They're going to use the rookie little slot guys, scat back Demetric Felton on some misdirection stuff. But, the goal will always be to turn it over in the fourth quarter to the two running backs. And that probably means a couple of carries for Dearness and a bunch for Nick Chubb. The Browns will not rush anybody back, especially a guy like Nick Chubb. If he plays Sunday, he will be 100%. And the goal will be for him to get 20, 25 carries, 100 some yards and drive everything they do offensively.
All right. The Browns running backs are talented, but they do have one of the best offensive line in the league, led by Bill Callahan. From left to right, Jedrick Willis Jr., Joe Batonio, J.C. Treader, Wyatt Teller, and Jack Conklin. While the offensive line excels in the run game, they have not been as good in the pass protection. And that, as a result, Baker Mayfield has been getting knocked around, and he's in the situation he's in. So how do you feel about how this Browns offensive line matches up with the defensive line of the Steelers?
You're 100% right in that they've been better run blocking. I think A, they just are that. B, they had injuries to the tackles. They're expecting Conklin back, but they had to play some guys that frankly had never played before. And a lot of the sacks came on third and fourth down. When the Browns play ahead of the sticks and can keep running it at you, they're really hard to defend. Regardless of who's the quarterback, if you get him in 3rd and 8, or I think Stefanski's gotten greedy and gone for some 4th and 5s. And frankly, teams have blitzed or have beaten the blockers, and they've gone back there and mashed them. And we know the Steelers can do that. I mean, I think the Browns look and believe this Steelers front is one of the best, if not the best in the league. So they'll know that their offensive line, has to have an outstanding game. That said, they did last January, right? It was all Browns that night in the playoff game. But the offensive line, even without Batonio that night, was pretty dominant. So I completely agree that that's the matchups I'm looking at on both sides. Can this, new and pretty bad Steelers offensive line block Clowney and Garrett? And can the Browns open up holes in the run game and keep Watt and all those guys from getting in the backfield? So when the Browns are good, they run it, and the O-line plays really well. They expect Conklin back. They expect to be whole really for the first time all season long. And if and when they do that, they're pretty good. So that is certainly something to watch. And for the Steelers to win on Sunday, I think that, they're going to have to win those individual matchups and get back there and cause a couple turnovers. Because if the Browns O-line plays well, I think the Browns will win.
And the Browns' top 5 wide receivers are Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr., Donovan Peoples-Jones, Rashard Higgins, and Anthony Schwartz. And they also have Austin Hooper and David Njoku as their tight ends. What are your thoughts on the receiving weapons and what's been going on with OBJ and Landry? Because I read today that they both don't have any receiving touchdowns this year. And kind of a second part is, do you think OBJ's tenure in Cleveland is almost done?
Yeah, it is. It is. And he's playing hurt right now. The Browns only have 7 touchdown passes in 7 games, yet they have a winning record. In 2021 in the NFL, that's very strange, right? I think that the more than fair to say that the receiving group as a whole has been completely disappointing. But guys have been injured. There hasn't been one single game where they've had them all there. And that should continue this week, as I'm not sure Peoples-Jones is going to get there. I know Beckham is playing at less than 100%. Landry's back, but he's playing at less than 100%. So, they don't have that real downfield threat. Schwartz is a little bit, but he's a pretty green rookie. Peoples-Jones can be a little bit, but they haven't had the quarterback to get it there. And Beckham is just not 2017 is a long time ago when you watch Odell Beckham. He's blocking his ass off. He's playing hard. He's not the same guy, and he's not healthy. So that's a big concern. And he makes $16 million, and 0 of it is guaranteed next year. So, everybody can do the math there on how that's going to work out. If the Browns are still going to make the playoffs this season and have a push, they need better out of their receiving core. That certainly includes the quarterbacks getting those guys the ball. It includes the receivers being healthy and just, time and reps, guys. Last year, the Browns passing game at this point of the year was awful. Then they went to Cincinnati, they got in a hole, they dug out of it, and it took off from there. So sometimes you just need that big game. And Jarvis Landry is their most important receiver. He missed 4 games and really 5 because the game he got hurt on the second snap of the game. So you've just not had Jarvis for very much. He comes back healthy and starts producing. It opens things up for other guys, and they can still get there. But right now, judging them on 7 games, yeah, you can circle receiving core as one of the most disappointing and really puzzling things, because there's a lot of talent and a lot of proven accomplishment in that group.
All right, let's move out to the defensive side of the ball, Zach. All right, it all starts with Myles Garrett up front, who's having another all-pro type of year. Could be a dark horse defensive player of the year candidate. But how's the rest of the defensive line look so far? And do you think they can, well, you already said it's going to come out to it, but how do you think that matchup's going to bear out?
Yeah, Clowney is really talented. And really his whole career, when he's been healthy, he has been an awesome player. It hasn't always shown up in sack numbers, but their combo together and the way they're able to mix and match if they get you in passing downs is trouble. Defensive tackle, they remade the whole group. They have Malik Jackson, who's 31, but is still playing pretty well. They got Malik McDowell out of nowhere. He was drafted in 2017. He never played a down in the NFL. He got in trouble. He went to jail. He was hurt. He was in an ATV accident. And now he's playing. And I mean, because this guy is massive. Like Malik McDowell is like prime Casey Hampton, the way that he is just throwing people into the backfield at times. So it's a really good front, and it's a real matchup problem. I mean, when you say dark horse player, Garrett is the overwhelming favorite to be defensive player of the year. He is awesome. And we know his history with the Steelers. So, they've been kind of inconsistent and like you guys know with TJ Watt over there, right? It's not like you expect these guys to have 3 sacks every game realistically, but you just see they're so good and you kind of start to expect that. If the Steelers let Ben get hit, or if they get themselves in a position where Ben's got to drop back and throw it down the field with these guys breathing down on him, it will be a long day for the Steelers. So that is really an interesting matchup on many fronts, because the Browns have blown some coverages and are still working things out in the back of their defense. But the best way to play pass defense always is for Garrett and Clowney to just get back there first and make the guy throw it before he wants to.
And the trio at linebacker in the Browns 4-3 scheme is Mack Wilson, Anthony Walker, and Sion Taki. How have the Browns linebackers been performing this season, and how do you see or how do you think they match up with Najee Harris, who's the not only a threat as a runner, but also in the passing game? And really, the offense really for the Steelers, it really goes through Najee Harris.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting, because the best linebacker, the rookie Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, is out. He has a high ankle sprain, and he's going to miss at least a couple of more games. He's the fastest linebacker. So Walker will play almost every snap. He's a veteran guy, was with the Colts for 4 or 5 years before this year. Not super fast, but he's instinctual. He gets everybody lined up, and they basically paid him $5 million to come in and be a captain, be a coach on the field for this defense. Wilson and Taki are just guys. Wilson played pretty well last week. But, they don't play a ton of base defense. Now, knowing that Najee's going to drive everything, might they be in more base defense? Yeah. So it's hard to see those guys, truly factoring in. I think the biggest thing with the linebackers is defending the short pass game for the Steelers. They're vulnerable. Their Browns are not very good. They play a lot of zone coverage. They want to keep things in front of them, but they give up way too many passes to the tight ends and, the quick stuff to the receivers that can turn into big plays. And I think that's really where Pittsburgh's going to have to attack. And certainly I think they probably feel like an advantage on when they screen to Najee or when they flip it to him, on quick passes against those linebackers with JOK out. But we'll have to see. And again, it just comes back to that whole thing. The Browns can't let Ben get in that quick rhythm and let the Steelers get in that quick rhythm. They have to get in spots where Ben has to drop back and they can let Clowney and Garrett get to him.
All right. You said about the secondary earlier. They got John Johnson III from the Rams last year. He's lived up that expectation. But how do you think the Browns secondary is doing overall? We know you have Denzel Ward, all pro level. I'll say Pro Bowl level corner, but there's a little questions about everywhere else in the secondary.
Well, there's all names, right? They should be playing better. They're not. And I'm not sure Denzel Ward's going to play. So, he had a hamstring injury late in the last game, and it was one of those where he went down and like within 2 minutes they ruled him out. So you think it's bad, right? Now he's had almost a week to heal, and the team, until they get into practice the next couple of days, doesn't have to release anything, but it looks bad because they're already thin there. They've had to use 5 corners early in the year because of various little injuries, and the 5th one was already out, and now the 1st one's out. So they brought in Troy Hill from the Rams, also slot corner, veteran guy, and he's gotten beaten a couple times, but everybody does. Like, he's been really solid in bringing guys to the ground and making sure guys are in the right place. Grant Delpit is missed all of last year at safety. He's been kind of hit and miss, but the talent's obvious. The rookie Greg Newsome is going to be a really good player. He's a 21-year-old rookie right now. If he serves as the number 1 corner on Sunday, it's going to be a hell of a test for him. So, yeah, I mean, my answer is the secondary has had 2 good games, and if you think Johnson's lived up to the hype, you watched the last game. John Johnson was awesome. For about 3 of the first 5 games, John Johnson was invincible, and so were many of the other DBs. So, we'll see, and that's shaky. I certainly would expect the Steelers to test them deep early in the game with Claypool, with Deontay Johnson, and see what they can get there, because the Browns have been susceptible to that. But again, it's what the Browns want to do is sit in zone and occasionally blitz, but mostly just make you put drives together and make you beat them. Give their pass rush more chance to get back there and disrupt you. So in that regard, losing Ward is not a huge deal. But as the game goes on, they will have some opportunities against Newsome and Greedy Williams if Denzel is in the lineup, no doubt about it.
And I was looking at the depth chart for the Browns, and I saw that Greedy Williams and Grant Delpit, are they backups in the secondary? Because I was a little bit surprised by that.
Yeah, well, they both missed all year last year with injuries. Yeah, so, I mean, Greedy was a starter his rookie year. He suffered a training camp injury that they thought was not going to be major, but it led to some nerve damage, and he didn't play all year. Delpit tore his Achilles, and they were bringing him back, and they feel like he's all the way back from that, but then he had a hamstring in camp, and he was basically a rookie and didn't have any experience. So he got burned a couple times in Minnesota and in LA. And he got benched, but then last game he came in and he played just as much as Ronnie Harrison for the first time. So there's a chance that Grant Delpit's a starter on Sunday. I don't know that. I mean, they drafted him 2 years ago thinking that he would be, a really good player for this defense. I still think there's a chance that it happens. It's just behind schedule right now because he hasn't been able to stay healthy and just doesn't have the experience. And I think the good offenses are going right at him when he comes in the game because they know they have a lot better chance of fooling him than they do John Johnson or Troy Hill.
All right. Double-parted question. Who do you think is going to have a big game for the Browns this week? And what is your biggest concern heading into Sunday?
I think Nick Chubb will have a big game. I think the game plan will be designed to feed him. And I just think, he'll be fresh. He's such a rare talent. And just the way he runs, he wears on the defense. And, man, when he cuts back, he explodes like guys that are that big are not supposed to. My concern would be just the timing of everything. You're changing quarterbacks, right? It's the first time since the second quarter of week 1 that you expect to have your whole O-line back together. The Browns they've had a ton of injuries. They've played a season's worth of guys in 7 games at various spots. So, they feel much better health-wise. And as I mentioned before, the offense really won't change that much if it is Keenum over an injured Baker. But they just have not, it's just not ideal because you've had to get so many guys in and out. And if you're missing Peoples-Jones and you're missing Denzel Ward, those are guys that can help you. And those are good players that have played big parts in the Browns getting good over the last year. So, when you play the Steelers, your obvious concerns are giving up the big play, to the talented receivers and letting TJ Watt and those guys get back and make huge plays. So I think the Browns will be really simple, real conservative, and try to win 17-14 like they did last week. And, I think it'll come down to blocking and tackling like it always does. And, who manages the game better and who doesn't make that big mistake.
Zach, you kind of hinted at it with the score. there. But I know we're recording this on Tuesday, so it's still pretty early in the week. But do you have a prediction for the game?
Yeah, I mean, if it was right now, I do in my Friday This Week in Browns column, I'll make a prediction. And if it was right now, I would pick the Browns 17-14 or 20-17, somewhere along those lines. I love the under. I think both defenses will show up and impact the game. And I think both coaches will take their shots early, but be conservative after that, because I just don't think you want to be the one that makes the big mistake.
All right, a few more questions. We ain't going to hold you too much longer. Browns, when we talk about that playoff victory last season, how do you think they're going to build off that? And as they get healthy, do you think they have what it takes to make the next step?
Well, I think that game, obviously it was strange early, right? But the Browns were pretty dominant. I mean, the Browns didn't snap the ball over the guy's head, but they did everything else right in the first half. And then when the Steelers came back in the second half, I mean, that's why the Browns remade their defense the way they did, because they just didn't have the guys back there. They think they have better players now, right? How it exactly pertains to us on the outside, I don't know, but that was 8 quarters in a row they played against each other, right? So I think these teams know each other inside and out. The Browns are finally getting to where the Steelers and Ravens have been, and they finally have some continuity, and they're, building within systems and have some foundational pieces. So like I said, I expect a competitive game, and I expect the Browns to win if they get Chubb rolling and if they get Roethlisberger to where he has to make plays or has to run from those guys, because he's just not going to do that anymore, right? He killed the Browns for many years, shaking the first guy off and chucking it down the field. He's not going to get away from Myles Garrett in 2021. He's just not. So, but the Steelers are off the bye. They need this game. I think they look at it. They come home after this and play the Lions and the Bears. Like, if they're going to make a run, it's right now. And the Browns are finishing a 3-game homestand. Have a chance to get some momentum together, and finally are going to have their offensive line and Nick Chubb. So they feel good about it too. I think, like I said, I've been wrong once or twice before, but I'll be stunned if it's 35-31. I think the Browns want to get up 10-0, and the Browns want to have the lead in the fourth. And if it only takes 17 or 20, they're more than fine with that.
And that win in the playoffs last year, that really kind of emerged of the Steelers-Browns rivalry again. I mean, it goes all the way back to the 70s. But, for a while, especially during the 2000s and 2010s, it wasn't much of a rivalry. And the cities are very similar. They're close by each other, like only like 2 hours. And the cities really don't like each other. You always see like the back and forth banner on Twitter among the fan base. But what are your thoughts on the Steelers-Browns rivalry?
Well, you guys know that, Heinz opened in 2001, and the playoff game is only the second time the Browns ever won there. Yeah. And on the flip side, the Brown Stadium opened in 99, and until last year, no quarterback won more games there than Ben did. So it's, you just can't explain how lopsided it's been. As far as thoughts on the rivalry, like the fans want it. The fans here in Cleveland took great pleasure in thinking that they ended the Steelers last January. Did they officially? I don't know. I can tell you that it was an embarrassing effort by the Steelers last January, and it was a total domination. But here's the chance at redemption. The Browns are good, but they have not played to their potential. Is that injuries? Are they overhyped? Do they have some real weaknesses? I still think we're in the process of finding out. I think this is a huge 4 quarters on Sunday for both teams, and it's a huge result for whoever gets it, as far as either springboarding forward, right, or dealing with the reality that you're mid-season and like the loser of this game's in last place. So this is a really big game.
So I'm just going to go on the limb. Is that January was your favorite Browns-Steeler rivalry moment? I'm just going to go out on a limb.
Well,
that's your favorite.
I don't know. Listen, I'm from Akron, so I enjoyed a lot of James Harrison plays. I've known James for a long, long time. I enjoyed that game in 2009 when it was like minus 20 degrees and Josh Cribbs ran all over the Steelers. So, I know I avoided the question, but it was mostly because I was rambling, not because I was trying to avoid it. I mean, the day Antonio Brown kicked the punter in the face, shoot, who can forget that, right? Yeah. I would say, like, from where I sit as a neutral observer and covering the team and covering the league, you want there to be rivalry and you want it to be special to the fan bases and to the players. Like, I wish the Steelers would have played better last year in January and that game would have come down to the last minute, because it would have been a hell of a lot more memorable than them laying down the way they did. Right. So I think Sunday could be huge. And like I said, it's going to be the springboard, or it could be the springboard for whichever team wins. So it could deliver a classic moment of its own.
Mm. And speaking of James Harrison, I seen some of the videos of when he slammed the Browns fan back in 2005 on Christmas Eve.
On Christmas Eve, yes.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Did you cover that game then, or?
I did. I worked for ClevelandBrowns.com at the time, and like I said, I mean, James and I grew up a few miles apart, went to rival high schools. You know, I know his whole story from getting in trouble in high school to Kent State and all that, and you know, glad he made it. Scared as hell of him for most of my life, quite frankly. But yeah, I mean, he's a once in a lifetime cat, and he was, you know, a big part of the Steelers' success for a long time. And just the way that they used him and the way they kept finding those guys, that just set them apart from the Browns for a long time. Now, you know, the Browns are building something. I think, man for man, the Browns clearly have more talent than the Steelers do at this point. But over 4 quarters on Sunday, I'm not sure what that means. I'm excited to find out.
Yeah, another clip on Twitter that's been going around was the Joey Porter and William Green fight in 2004.
Yes.
Joey Porter both of them got thrown out of the game, and that was actually James Harrison's first start too.
Yeah, that launched James's career, no doubt. The Browns were wearing I remember that very well. Very well. Did you say 2004? Is that when that was?
Yeah, it was 2004.
Yeah. I mean, William Green had the big season in 2002. He had the big run, big night in Pittsburgh in 2002. That's the only time the Browns have won in Heinz before last January.
Yeah, but both of those back-to-back years, interesting events. Both happened in Cleveland also. But that's pretty much it. Brandon, do you have anything else?
I was going to ask, did you cover the team when the last time before, ironically, when they played the Steelers in 2002?
Oh, in the playoffs?
Yeah, so out of the last 20 years, I've probably been at every Browns Steelers game except for maybe 1 or 2. So, yes.
That's interesting.
That's Zach Johnson of the Athletic. Oh no, excuse me. Sorry. That's Zach Jackson of the Athletic. You could follow him at Akron Jackson. Athletic, they do a great job. I know Mark Cabali and Ed Bouchette for the Steelers covers. They do a great job there covering the Steelers. But Zach, we appreciate you coming on the podcast and talking about the Steelers Browns game on Sunday.
Caboli sucks. Everybody knows that. But thanks for having me.
Hey, man, that's my guy, man. He can't be talking about it like that.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, Brandon. So, what are your predictions for Sunday's game? Do you have any bold predictions for this?
Bold predictions.
Browns.
Honestly, no, not this week. I think this Zach covered it. The main thing is the battle of the trenches. Whoever can control the line of scrimmage is going to most likely win the game. He picked Chubb. He thinks Chubb is going to have a big game. I think he's going to have plus 80 to 90 yards. I think he'll have his share of yards. But the key is, if he gets going early, they're in trouble. Especially if he gets going in the second half, because the Steelers have not shown the ability to finish strong on defense all season long. So if they get behind, they're going to stay behind, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point there about the Steelers, how they played in the second half of games. But yeah, I agree. The Browns, that's what they are. They run the ball. They have a great offensive line. And they got Keenum, so he's just going to be a game manager probably. If he ends up starting, which seems like he will, because I don't know. I can't really see Baker playing this week because that fall he had against Arizona on his shoulder was brutal, and I don't know. He's just so banged up right now, and this is week 8, so I don't think you want to risk losing Mayfield for any longer really out there.
No.
But yeah, as far as our score predictions, Ty, he told me what his score, what he thinks the score is going to be for this game, and he has the Steelers winning 21-17. He said he just has a hunch that the Steelers will play with more fire in this game, especially after coming off that playoff loss, that brutal playoff loss to the Browns in January. He thinks this will be a statement win for the Steelers. And as far as a big time player for the Steelers, he has Najee and the offensive line. He thinks the offensive line is really starting to turn the corner, and he thinks they'll bring their A game for this pivotal matchup against the Browns on Sunday. So, Brandon, what's your score?
It's gonna be a field goal game either way, I think. I'm gonna go with the visiting team here. 20-17. And we always say TJ Watt, we say Najee Harris. I think the person who's gonna win this game, the hero, the boss, it's going to be a walk-off kick. 2017 walk-off kick. And Ben will figure out a way to burn Cleveland one more time. In Cleveland.
Wow, man, this is going to be the second week in a row where I'm going to be picking against the Steelers while everyone else is picking the Steelers, because the last game I had the Seahawks win, and I probably should have went with the Steelers being Geno Smith. But, they almost pulled it off, where the Steelers almost blew that game. But, yeah, I just don't know about this team right now, the Steelers. I'm just they're kind of hard to figure out, because you think they beat a bad Broncos team, and then they beat a Seahawks team led by Geno Smith. But I think this is going to be a tough game for the Steelers. Even if Keenum's the starter, I think just like that run game is the Steelers didn't look good at all stopping the Seattle's rushing game. So I think they're going to have their hands full with this Browns rushing attack, which was one of the best in the league, because I think their offensive line just plays at such a high level. But yeah, I'm going to go 24-17. I want to say the Browns win. And I think it's just going to be like Roethlisberger is going to have one chance to go down the field, and, like a sack's going to happen or like a fumble, and that's how the Browns win the game. I think they're going to have a little bit of trouble with the Browns defense too, because Myles Garrett is, as Zach Jackson mentioned, he's playing at a really high level right now, and he could be the defense. I know Diggs down there in Dallas is, playing really at a high level right now, but Garrett's doing really well right now. He's 9.5 sacks, and I think he has he has a lot of tackles for loss. Yeah, he has 9 tackles for loss, which is tied for first in the league. So that's going to be tough for that young Steelers offensive line to block Garrett.
That's going to be tough. Yeah, that's going to be tough, because you think he's has a better chance than TJ Watt right now with Myles Garrett as defensive player of the year?
Probably, but only just because he leads, and I think he's like number 1 in the league in sacks right now.
That's interesting. That's great.
There's still a lot of football left to be played. I mean, the Steelers have 11 games left, so it's always tough to say really who's having a better year.
Right, but all we know is Michael Strahan's sack record is in trouble,
especially with the added 17th game.
Oh yeah, that record is going. I think it's in trouble this year, but I do say this. I do say make my prediction with a little bit of trepidation. Let that be known.
So you think the Steelers are going to go? You think they're going to be 6-3 after these next 3 games?
It's there's the old Tomlin special potential there. There's one potential there.
Well, they got the Bears on Monday Night Football, and they're home against the Lions after this week.
Ooh.
But their back half of the schedule is brutal. They got travel to the Chargers on Sunday Night Football. Then they go on the road against the Bengals. Then they're home against the Ravens, and then they got a short week where they play the Vikings on the road, and then after that they're home against the Titans, away against the Chiefs, which doesn't look as tough as a game now because they're kind of struggling right now. But then they're home.
They'll get their act together.
But they're home. Then they're home against the Browns. on Monday Night Football, and then they finish the season up on the road against the Ravens. So, man, that's a brutal back half of the schedule. So they need these wins now. So if they're going to win in Cleveland on Sunday, that's huge.
Yeah, they need it. They definitely need it right now. Browns a little bit vulnerable in the injury department. That's why I'm picking. If it was a straight up, if they were like a little bit more healthy, if Denzel Ward, Landry isn't 100%, Odell isn't 100%. If they were a little bit more healthy, I'd pick the Browns with confidence, but they're too banged up right at this point. They're catching the Browns at the perfect time.
Yeah, I know.
Off their bye week.
And the Browns, they did have a mini bye week too, though.
But they're still banged up. They're picking it. They're taking them at the perfect time.
Yeah, you're right.
So
it's definitely
if you're going to do it,
especially
their time to do it.
Playing away too. You like to have the Steelers. You like to like the Steelers. You have to like the Steelers in this game just because of that.
Oh yeah. Here we go.
Especially coming off the bye week.
Right.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Renegade Blitz podcast. We will have a recap show on Monday following the Steelers-Browns game. And we hope to have Ty back then. And we wish his family and everything's going well there on that end. So, Brandon, we're going to sign out here.
All right, man. Ty, wish your family the best. We're praying for you, brother. Hope to see you back here on Monday.
Thank you for listening to the Renegade Blitz Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at @RBlitzPod, and at Blitz Videos. Read articles on RenegadeBlitz.com. Like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. The Renegade Blitz Podcast is available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, and wherever else you can listen to podcasts.